I am honestly so excited for this episode. Whenever I get to sit down with my clients who have just become friends and soul sisters, it's honestly so rad. So rad. I'm just so stoked to be able to sit down with Brooke today and give you guys a sense of her magic and her transmission and her love and everything that she's doing in the world. She's just absolutely extraordinary. She's an amazing coach, amazing therapist, has a massive vision for really helping women dismantle perfectionism. And I know for me, I can remember the chapter in my life where perfectionism literally ruled my life. It was when those it was like the chapter of like the eating disorder days where I was so burnt out because I was working so hard to be perfect at so many things. And then once I started to heal my eating disorder through breath work, as you guys know that story, and if you don't, long story short, struggling with an eating disorder and body image issues for so long, found breathwork, realized like, oh my goodness, we can actually heal our minds and our bodies through the breath. I began to really heal my perfectionism because I realized that this illusion of perfection that I was chasing for so long held me in such a cage. And when I realized that messiness and authenticity and realness is actually what makes me feel so alive, that's when I realized like perfectionism is this disgusting little demon. That was so intense. But I think a lot of us have it living within us. And now I can feel my perfectionism as if it's this distant demon in the background and it doesn't actually rule my life like it used to. It used to be so blended with my personality and I almost wore perfectionism like a badge of honor. And so I'm just so pumped to have Brooke Jean on the podcast because this is her vibe. This is her shtick. This is her work. This is her zone of genius. And I'm just so excited to share that. And Brooke and I in this podcast talk about the Life Mastermind, which Brooke is one of my Life Mastermind members, which I also think is pretty rad for you just to get an insight and a feel of who are the women, who are the types of women that are a yes to this container. What's their vibe? What's their energy? What are they all about? What is their vision? What are they looking for? And my assumption is that through this episode, you will find a little bit of yourself in her story. And maybe now is that time for you to jump in and join the Life Mastermind. We are enrolling for the 2025 cohort. I only have 8 spots left now. And at the time of recording this, we're doing a challenge to welcome the members in. The third day of the challenge is actually when this podcast is going out. So if you have been thinking about joining a community of women who are committed to doing business in the life way, which stands for, if you don't know, lucrative, impactful, fun, and easy, then go ahead and go to www.pausebreathwork.com/mastermind, pausebreathwork.com/mastermind. I'm also going to put a link in the show notes here so you can get there. But I would absolutely love to hear from you, get your application, and really see if this is a fit for you. It is for women who want to do 6 to 7 figures in their business, but do it in a way that feels nourishing on the soul. So it doesn't feel like our soul is being sacrificed at the cost of profitability and revenue. We get to have it all. We just have to prioritize energy over strategy. We have to prioritize heart over hustling. And we really have to prioritize like flow and being committed to flow over forcing things. So pausebreathwork.com/mastermind. Okay, guys, let's get right into today's episode.
Can't be contained.
That's what I'm talking about.
How's your day?
It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Got up nice and early, did a nice juicy little routine, went for a nice walk. I was like, my body was like real sore. So I'm like, I'm gonna like push it in the cold plunge today. I'm gonna do like 5 minutes in the cold plunge today. So there I am. Did 5 minutes in the cold plunge. And then I'm like, oh, I can't wait for a nice shower. I go upstairs and I'm like, why is there no water?
Oh no, what happened?
They're doing some like work and the water's off for 3 hours. So I'm like doing my makeup. I'm like, but we're warmed up now. We're good. We're good.
You're like, I really could, but you have the sauna. You have the sauna.
I know. I was like, is it dumb to turn on the sauna when it's 80 degrees outside? And I came to the realization that yeah, that's a little dumb. So you know what? I just sat in the sun. I was like, come on, let's go.
I
did think
love
about
it. I love it. That cold plunge is just like everything. I feel like it literally wakes my cells up. I can
Oh.
feel the blood rush to my head. I can feel like the mental health issues like melting away. The
Seriously.
fog melts and you're just like, okay, I'm ready. Like I'm alive. I'm alive now.
I'm like ready to rock and roll. I'm ready. You know, it's interesting. I was doing a study the other day on the body's response to when you do 20 minutes of sauna, 3 cold plunge, 20 minutes of sauna, 3, and you do it 3 times.
Yeah.
And the physiological response that the body has is similar to ecstasy.
What?
Yeah.
But I totally feel that. I feel that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's without breath work, Brooke. Imagine throwing some breath work on there. Now we're really cracking. It's like,
yeah, this is the new way that we get fucked up. This is the new way that we get fucked up.
I'm so fucked up tonight. Oh, but it's Tuesday. No, just off sauna cold plunge, you know?
Yeah, no, but I'm telling you, that's what's up. That stuff is like your body has to remember that it has the capacity to feel that good.
Oh, I know. And then
you know what I mean? Like naturally,
Yeah.
on its own. Cause I feel like we get really like stuck there, like after college and in the grind of 20s and 30s, and your body just like forgets that it has these euphoric states unless you activate them.
We forget that we can get high off our own supply.
I know.
Bada bang.
I know.
You know?
I'm all about it. I'm all about that life.
Eric and I did some breath work at the beach the other day, and he's like, why do I feel like God just hand shook me? I'm like, it'd be so fun to do like, dude. Yeah, exactly. It'd be so fun to do a series on just like
what people say after they get out.
Like I remember my first time, ... and then just a bunch of people talking about. It's just wild. It's just wild how good.
Yeah, you're like, I'm ready for the day. You're like a total like testosterone douche. You're like, I'm ready for the day. Fucking take over the world. Your husband's like, what are you doing? I just got out of a cold shower, just getting ready for my day. I'm just getting ready for my day, honey. Don't worry.
Whenever I go to the gym and I lift really heavy and then I come home and I do I normally do the cold plunge before the gym. Apparently you're not supposed to do it after, but then I'm in like real, like, you know, gifted masculine mode. And Eric's like, okay, we need to just like, can you do some pussy practices before you bring that energy over here? Cause we're not having 2 alphas in this house.
You're like, yeah, okay, you're right. I'm feeling like I could literally whoop your ass right now. So shit, let me tone her down.
I know you are literally double my weight, but I feel like I can arm wrestle you right now. How attractive is that, babe?
I'm gonna lift you.
Oh my God.
You're cute. Good for you. Well, I'm so excited to have this conversation.
I'm so happy we're doing this.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh my gosh. Amazing. Of course, babe. Of course. I'm so stoked to share. I feel like I've gotten this very intimate seat into your life over the last, how long have I known you? Feels like forever, but I think
7 months or so.
7 months. Yeah.
7 or 8.
And it's just so beautiful to see the way in which you do biz, the way in which you show up, how deeply connected you are to your mission. It just oozes out of you.
Yep.
What I love so much about the way you do it is like, you are just 100% you, you know, the authenticity oozes out of you. And I'm actually, that's kind of where I want to start with you. Yeah. We all know that authenticity is the greatest marketing strategy, blah, 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 blah. We all know this. People talk about this all the time, right? Authenticity, the vibration of authenticity is higher than love. We talked about that in the Life Mastermind a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
But people find it so challenging to be authentic. And I'm very curious on your viewpoint, your beliefs, the ways in which you program yourself to just show up authentically and not really give two poops about what people think.
Yeah. And it's still a journey that I'm on, but I can talk about that for days, honey. I can talk about that because that is the unperfected method, essentially, right? It's the heal, become, rise method where it's like you got to shed the layers. You got to like sit with yourself. You got to do inner child work. You got to be in your body. You got to like follow what makes the nips hard, not what makes the stomach.
Okay, wait.
Front.
That is something that Brooke brought into the Life Mastermind, and I am obsessed. Nips hard.
Nips hard. It's like that is my decision maker of authenticity now. It's like that is my red light, green light of like, is it a yes or a no? You know, when you're just like, you feel so alive in your body and you're so present, and whatever it is just delicious. Like it could be your morning ritual, it could be being in the Life Mastermind, it could be working with a client. But it's like, I know when I'm turned on, and that means, yes, I'm in the vibe, I'm in authentic vibration. This is where I'm meant to be. But I had shut off and disconnected from my body for so long, as so many women do, starting at such a young age. That I had to like clear the cobwebs of my channel of communication to my body and my pleasure. And like, oh, now my body's finally talking to me again. Cause I didn't have this nips hard sensation for like 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was more like anxious belly sensation.
Sure.
So I think that's a huge part of it too.
What was the defining moment where you realized that living a life of being suppressed and numb was not it? And what was the decision moment? What happened for you to go, I'm going to start chasing fulfillment. I'm going to start chasing energy. I'm going to really shift the trajectory of my life.
It was on our honeymoon. So after I had a big community crisis happen when I was running a Target store, we had the Aurora Theater shooting. And we like lost a team member in that. And it was this major, major thing. Like many people on our team were affected. And I had just like done what a good girl does. And I led my team, you know, through that trauma. And 9 months later, I went and got married, and I sat on a beach in Maui for 10 days. And it was the first time, I think now, ever that I regulated my nervous system. And I had this wild duality on that trip where I got so regulated and I'm so alive. Like I remember like us doing like a sunset sail where I was just like, what the fuck is this bliss in my body? And then like the next day, all this trauma from childhood came in that I had repressed my whole entire life. And I was like, wait a minute. So I have been holding back all of these memories and feelings and trauma responses, which has probably been preventing me from feeling how good this feels. And I just knew intuitively, I'm going to have to clean this up so I can feel this good and access this more and more and more. And I can't do it in the environment that I just built all my gross habits in. And so I like made the decision on my honeymoon. I was leaving my corporate career. I was figuring out who the fuck I was. And I just started making, my poor husband was like, I was like the breadwinner. He's like, you're quitting your job.
You're like, wait a second.
I was like, no, I can feel that this work is coming through that is so big. It's not going to be done as a side thing. It's going to be the
main thing.
The main thing. Yeah. So that started the journey like 10 years ago.
It's crazy when we have a main thing and it's real fueled by mission and heart, just how potent that main thing can be, and the ripple effect and the impact. And it just juices me. It's like when I see women like yourself who have their thing and it's fueled by this power and this heart and these feminine energetics, and we do business like women are supposed to do business. It's like we literally become unstoppable. We are the ultimate creators.
Literally. And that's where I'm at now. Like I went through the healing and then the healing and then the becoming who you really are. And then now I'm in the rising phase, which is why I joined Life Mastermind, because I was like, I want to rise the correct way for me.
Yeah.
I know how to do it the old way.
Tell me what that is. Like, what is that for you? What is that vision for you?
It's just riding this wave of like, my mental health, my energy levels, my gifts, the rest, and then go hard. Like I am a very like that, but I just went like that for so long. And I'm never going to be the like chill, feel good all the time. Like I'm still a driven person.
Yeah. We got some fire in there.
We got fire in there. And so it was like, wait, how do I take these things that are truly core to who I am and lead in a way that I'm like writing my own rhythms and honoring them.
Yeah.
And so I trust now. Like if I have a day where I'm off or a week, because I seriously am up and down in my mental health, no matter what the fuck good things I'm doing for myself. It's acceptance now that there's some shit and whatever. We don't even need to diagnose it. I learned I can have a down day or a week because when I come up for air, it's fucking rocket ship takeoff.
Yeah.
And I'm going to surpass anybody who's running with me. And we got this. Let's go. And so, but then when I fall, I don't shame myself. I don't blame myself. I don't compound the negative effect.
Yeah.
I'm just like, this is my pattern.
And this is so congruent with nature. And this is one, I love that we're having this conversation because this is exactly how nature works. Imagine if seasonality was just always the same and never changed. It's like life doesn't actually work that way. We have got to shed and let go and come down to come up. And every single valley and every single mountain is strengthening us no matter what it is. So I love that you pointed to shame because I think that's a massive thing when it comes to the overachieving, high achieving perfectionist, which is your expertise, woman who thinks that she can't have bad days.
That's right.
No, it's like, no, babe, those cocoon days, those bathroom breakdown days, those mascara down your face days, those days where your nips maybe aren't hard. Those are the days that life is actually building you and strengthening you.
Yeah. And there's always gold in that mess. So one of the key statements of my brand is embrace your messy, which is about authenticity and really like radical acceptance of who you are, the good, bad, the ugly, the shadow, the protectors, everything. But it's also about like in the messiest moments of my life, there was always nuggets of gold there that informed my journey and informed my leadership and my energy and who I was becoming, that there's just no way I would be so sure or so strong or so focused or so magnetic to my vision had I not had to excavate for those gems along the way. Like, so we don't avoid it. We're not in resistance to it. We don't shame ourselves. It's just part of, and that's exactly like what you're saying, like nature mimics those similar rhythms, but I didn't. I was a, what's it called when you run so fast? A sprint.
Yeah.
And
run so fast. I don't know. I don't run, Brooke. I'm not
what's
sure.
That called? You run so fast. You run so fast. You're so fast. You're running so fast. It's freaking called sprint, bro. Mom brain. Hashtag mom brain. Embrace your messy. Everything's fine. But I would literally sprint until I would collapse. And then I would tell myself the yuckiest stories about my collapse. And then instead of gracefully getting back up, I would double down on the perfectionism.
Oh, baby.
I have to go harder and faster and better. And I have to pretend like I didn't just collapse. And I have to put on the show. And I was in that cycle until I couldn't be anymore. So,
you know, it's really interesting when we have collapse and then we have a shame sandwich and then we just stay in that vibration because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, it's like the harder we work, the more money we make. There's another big lie. It's like the harder we are on ourselves, the more that somehow magically we're going to evolve and actually get to where we want to go. And it always reminds me of that study that was done years ago of there's two plants, right? I talked about this in a recent podcast I had with Tracy Dowes. Plants are water. Humans are water, right? And when we talk to a plant with love, that plant grows and it prospers and it shines. When we talk down to the plant, it literally dies. Well, if plants are 90-something% water and we're 90-something% water, the same thing is going to happen. And so the kindest and most amazing thing that we can do for ourselves is when we are at our rock bottom, or not even a rock bottom, but just a bad day, a bad week. How can we speak to ourselves as if we are this child that is really sad? And we bring our adult online, not our asshole online, and we really begin to nurture ourselves back into love.
Yes. Yeah. So that reminds me of the water molecule experiment. Have you seen that on YouTube?
Is that the one? Tell me again.
It's the same thing. So
Okay.
this scientist, I forget his name, but just literally Google water molecule experiment. And he has all these little specimens of water, and half of them he shows love and pictures of Mother Teresa and positive affirmations. And the other, he shows Hitler and I hate you and all this. And after like 6 weeks or something, the water molecules that he spoke love into looked like the most gorgeous, pristine snowflakes. Everyone was like breathtakingly beautiful.
Oh.
And then the water molecules that he spoke ugly to looked like cancer cells. They were black, they were darkened, they were like disintegrating, breaking down. And then he talks about how, yeah, we're made of 80 or 90% water. And so I try to teach that to people like you are breaking yourself down on a cellular level.
Yes. Yes.
By being in your head, mean girl style all day long. And that's literally what drives the perfectionist is just the nastiest inner bee. So the first thing you could do is just like pause and notice, what am I saying to myself? Can I choose a different way of rooting for me or even holding myself accountable? The inner bee, man, she's no
The
joke.
inner bee.
The inner bee.
You know, when that voice, it's interesting. It was probably like 2017 when I went through all of my disordered eating and body image issues and just riddled with anxiety. My inner critic was so intense, like so crazy, like constantly all day long, loudspeaker. And I remember this day like it was yesterday. It was 2017. I had just moved to San Diego. And I was living actually just like a couple houses up from where I live now.
Yeah.
And I remember waking up one day and realizing, oh my gosh, my inner critic is gone. Like I just don't hear it anymore. And it was one of those crazy things where I realized the cost of having an inner critic and how emotionally expensive it is to have that dialogue in your brain all day, all day, all day, all day, all day long.
Yeah.
And it didn't disappear. It still pops up when I'm in high stress situations. But the question that I ask the voice is, whose voice is this? That's it. And something so simple as whose voice is this gives it enough space to go, that's not mine. That's society's. That's a caregiver. That's whatever it is.
A mean coach I had growing up, a critical mom or dad, a wounded mom or dad.
Yeah.
And even if it is your voice, it's a protective part.
There it is. Yep.
It's a part of you that wants to keep you safe and wants to keep you legit. And it's like, go, baby, go. And it's like, wait a minute. Do we really need to do that anymore?
Yeah.
Do we really need that level of accountability? How would you expect a child to perform if you were speaking to them nonstop the way that we speak to ourselves?
Yeah. Oh my God.
You think they're going to thrive?
Nope.
I mean, that also like becoming a mother and being like, these are the things you would never say to another human being, especially not your children. But we're walking around just berating ourselves until we're not. So what helped yours just lift?
I honestly think it was breathwork. I really do. I really do. It's like
disrupting the patterns.
I posted this on my story yesterday, so it's funny that we're having this conversation, but it's like when we under breathe, we overthink. And so it took me probably a good 5 years from when I found breathwork to that realization of just realizing how valuable it is to really be in my body. And the moment that I recognize that my thoughts are spinning, or I'm feeling hypervigilant, or I'm obsessing around food, or I have a negative body thought, oh, that is simply just an indication that I'm not breathing properly. And then once I allow myself to take conscious, continual, deep breaths, I release the charge from my mind. I begin to charge my body, and that voice softens. And that over time, just kind of trained my system to let the emotional body go first, the mind body go second. Because when the mind body is first and the emotional body is second, the mind is stuck in survival, right? So it's like the mind's always going to say everything's wrong. It's doomsday. We're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, which then informs the body that I'm not safe, I'm not safe, I'm not safe, I'm not safe. And then it just becomes this loop. So yeah, to answer your question, I think that's why I'm so obsessed with breath and why it's like the mission on my life and the thing that I've just chosen to dedicate my life to is because I've seen and felt the direct impact that it's had on my experience.
Yeah, it really does disrupt. And I'm not a breathwork expert. I only get all the juicy breathwork benefits of being in the Life Mastermind and having so many queens that are amazing at. I'm just like getting breathed like left and right by amazing people.
So good.
But truly, like we think these negative thoughts hundreds of millions of times that they become baked into our biology. They become neural pathways. And what I love about breath work is that you can't engage in what I call your stinking thinking, which is the negative spirals, and do the breath work at the same time. You can't be thinking it.
True.
You're like in the moment, you're present, you're in your body, you're like counting, like you can't. And so it literally disrupts these automatic thought loops. And the more that you can disrupt them, the more they can weaken. And then when you consciously choose your thoughts and you consciously place your awareness on more pleasant and positive things, now we have a chance to actually create new neural networks. And this is literally neuroplasticity. And I do agree with you. I think breathwork is one of the most badass ways to help you rewire your brain and body. And it's so fast and it's so effective. And it feels good. And there's other benefits too, but like, I just want to back you that like it disrupts the automatic thought loops that are baked in your biology. And that is the work. Like that is the healing.
So
I
just remember a time before I discovered breath work, but I was on a personal development journey because I started my career off as a mindset coach, and it was very much, Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins type of, era. And before I knew anything about the body or breath work or anything, I was just so committed to it's the mind, it's the mind, it's the mind. And so I was constantly trying to think my way into liberation and overthink. And if I strategize and I think about it, but then it's thought on thought on thought on thought. And the thoughts that we have that have so much practice of thoughts of like negativity and self-hatred, trying to add in some like self-love into there. It's just like, there's an expiry date.
You're spinning your wheels. I call that the hamster wheel. You're on the hamster wheel forever and ever. Amen. And your body is so strong. Like you can clean up your thoughts, but if you don't regulate the system, the body will inform the brain, we're not okay.
Yeah.
And then what's happening in the body is also happening in the brain, and they're always communicating. So you have to tend to the body, not just, it's like both work in tandem. You can't just tend to the brain because the body will bubble up the trauma
100%.
response 100% outside of your awareness, right? Any of you that are listening, when you get that freeze response and you're like, I don't even know what next step I should take. Like that wasn't even necessarily from a thought. It could have been, but your body had a response to some stimuli. I mean, you're getting billions of bits of stimuli every second. Okay. We're only taking in like 7 total. The rest is going into your energetic field, your subconscious mind, your body, and your body's freezing up. So it's like you can even literally be thinking positive thoughts, but your body is still going to be responding to all the other stimuli. And then it's going to freeze you up. And so you really have to like open. And I think that was another reason why I chose life was I have got to learn more about this somatic system. I want to learn more about my body and being in my body and expressing from my body. I want to learn more about my energy body. Like I knew intuitively there was so much there, but I wanted to know it better. And I wanted to weave it into me and weave it into my work. And like, I feel like we've just been in like massive energetic training for the last 7 months. We're just learning and being and moving. And it's so good.
I realized like that it was interesting. I had this when I stopped running Hungry for Happiness and I started Pause, that was the moment where, so from 2011 to 2017, I was an entrepreneur that ran on fear and adrenaline and anxiety. I was like, this is how you do it. You know, it's like the people that I followed at the time. It's like, of course, this is how you do it. If you're going to be successful, it's going to be painful. And if it's not painful, you're not doing it right. Like literally, I was like, if I'm not in pain, if I'm not exhausted, if I don't hate this on some level, I'm not going to be successful and I'm not doing it right. And so I began being so curious about that, you know, after I was like, I'm so tired. This is like so exhausting. I don't want to do this anymore.
Mhm.
And, you know, I just got into the conversation of like, what does business as a female actually look and feel like? And, you know, I like searched everywhere to try and find like, okay, who are those female entrepreneurs who are actually doing business as in the feminine? And I found pretty much no one, you know, like the only person that I would say almost would be Sarah Blakely. But other than that, I'm like, I don't see it.
Yep.
So then I'm like, okay, if it doesn't exist yet, how can I create the idea of what it might be like? And this was before pause even came into my world. Like this is before I was an avid breathwork student and a researcher, but I wasn't thinking about starting a breathwork company. So I then began feeling into this like, okay, if we know that women have all of these incredible powers to create, to collaborate, to connect, to just like transmute energy, to do all these things, what would that look like in business?
It's everything.
Dude.
It's
and then
everything.
I'm like, if I'm feeling this, other people are feeling this. And then when pause did come into my world, I was like, yo, God, here's the deal. If I'm going to start another business, I'm only going to do it in this way. I'm not doing it in any other way. And I'm going to trust you that I get to do it in my own way and it's going to be successful. Don't let me down. And so I just went all in, did it. And I was like, oh my God, when we prioritize energy above strategy and we really pay attention to our bodies and we use our bodies in business, we truly become unstoppable. It's just like
100%. We can access just like a never ending well of goodness, you know, like a never ending well of creation, a never ending well of magic, a never ending well of possibility. Like it's there, but we have to like unblock whatever blocks we put in our conditioning and in our survival.
Yeah.
But it's so fun to do business this way because now I don't stress. Like I literally, one of my fears, Sam, used to be like, am I going to feel good enough, consistently enough to be the one in charge of this mission, to lead this mission? Like, I don't feel good all the time. When I'm on, baby, I'm on. But when I'm off, I'm like rotting in my bed, you know, well, not really. I still like do things, but you know.
Sure.
But it's like, I'm like, will I feel good enough? Because I still had this belief that you had to be feeling good all the time, epic energy all the time. It's like once I kind of got rid of that and really started learning to ride the waves, then I was like, wait, I actually don't even need the energy. The energy finds me. And this is where I learned the whole resourcing thing through you guys. I was like, I just need to like put my butt on my meditation pillow every day and just, you know, shit down into the earth and bring some good back up and connect to the light. And I've always loved meditating like with the sun, and the sun feeds me and fuels me. But I was like, I personally don't have to muster up the energy. I get to just take care of myself. And that taps me in. And that carries me through.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be this way or that way or this way or that. Some days it's, you know, more serious than others. Some days it's super silly and playful. Some days it's brilliant. Some days it's like, what in the fuck are we even doing here? But it's all real and authentic and it's moving us forward. And that's been a game changer because I don't know about you, but like, I'm here for the long haul. Like I want to be of service. Like, this is my life's work. I love my work. And so when I'm no longer responsible for quote unquote, having enough energy or having the perfect mental health to be able to sustain this mission, now it's like nothing's in the way.
Yeah.
I can always access what I need. It's always available for us.
I love this. And I love that we're naming this because there's a lot of women, lots of women who listen to this podcast. Hi, I see you, that have these massive missions, have these just hearts to inspire, to change, to create their own reality, to make the money they desire. And oftentimes, babe, it's those limiting beliefs that stop them. Like, well, I don't have perfect mental health, or I don't have the perfect situation, or I'm a mom, or whatever it is. Like the amount of excuses that we have that stop us from taking action is wild. And although those are very valid things, right? Like mental health is valid, right? Being a mom and not having much time is valid. Like there's so many things, but what does it look like for those things to coexist and for it all to be there? You know, like yesterday in the mastermind, we were talking about, no, actually we can have it all. We can have what we want. We don't need to take all of it on. That's a different thing. We do not need to take all of it on. But for the things that we actually desire deeply in our lives, we get to have it all and we don't have to sacrifice. And that for women, especially, is an interesting duality, right? In a world where like, it's like, we got to be the good girls. We got to be the responsible ones. I got to like do this. It's like, what does it look like to actually prioritize you first? Because in doing that, there's going to be a waterfall ripple effect to everybody in your life.
Yes. Taking that was so huge. Taking the cap off of what we can have or receive is so big. And even after we had that conversation, I was like brain dumping all that I want in my life. Cause I'm over here, I'm like, I'm actually pretty good. I believe you can have a successful career and a beautiful marriage and like solo vacations as a busy working mom and like nice things and I believe it. So I started listing it out and I noticed that after about like 4 or 5. So for the listeners, you could even play with this too. It's like 4 or 5 things. I was like, I can have the car, I can have the family, I can have the vacations, I can have the nice, whatever the fuck. Then I got to 5 or something.
Yeah.
And it started feeling like a little naughty. Like, are we really going to keep going here? Like, are we? And it was so interesting, Sam, because even in my conscious mind, I was like, I believe we can have it all. But in my unconscious, there was still a limitation there that was like, girl, don't ask for more than your share. Like, if you already have the clients and the mission and the this, like, who are you to then have a boat on top of it? And
interesting, right?
Sushi every day. Like, come on, honey. Yeah. And I was like, that's interesting. So like continuing to do the training of like, no, it's truly whatever we want. And it's not what you don't want. You don't have to have it all, but the things that you do want, what are you doing to do the work to open up, to believe, to receive that it's possible? Because it is. And we're all limiting ourselves in some way.
Oh, completely, completely. Like if we truly believe that money is energy, which I fully believe that, I fully believe that money is energy. It's a vibration and it's not how hard we're working and it's not how to do it. It's fully aligning with the energetics of abundance. And once we really get with that, we realize, wow, that spiritual law is in fact true. Look at these things showing up. Look at these things showing up. And then the better it gets, the better it gets, the better it gets. And it's fundamentally shifting our identity, right? Which is what you named of like, is it excessive to have a boat? Sure. But I get to have that if I desire that.
Yeah. And when I feel the most alive I've ever felt on that boat, everybody's going to win. Everybody wins when mama is just out here like, woo, on the boat. I know you know that woohoo.
Nips hard on
You're
the
like,
boat.
yeah, you're sitting on the front of the boat, nips are hard, your hair is blowing, and you're just like, I am so alive. Like, what is that going to turn into? That's going to turn into love for my children, connection with my partner, a depth to my work, like a commitment to a beautiful life lived. And then if I live a beautiful life, I make it okay for other women to live a beautiful life. So to me, it's not that it's selfish or that it's greedy. It's like, no, it's beautiful because it gets channeled the feminine way. It gets channeled into like gifts for others.
Yeah.
But that's like, we have to like do that whole paradigm shift of like, when I tend to my vessel, then I can give more versus when I give more, it determines how valuable I am.
Oof. So
turning that paradigm upside down, like always working on that. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the that's the big body of work that you're into. It's like you are really the go-to coach for perfectionism. And would you say people pleaser as well? I kind of put those two things in
Oh,
a,
they hang out. They're like
they do,
besties
right?
for the
Okay.
resties. I have
Besties
yet to meet one that doesn't hang with the other. We are
Yeah.
perfectionists in our people pleasing pursuits.
Oh, tell me more about
We're
that.
the best people pleasers. You know what I mean? We're the best. Like, I'm trying to be your best client. I'm trying to be the doctor's best client. I'm trying to be the easiest. I'm like the one that's at the training, that's in the front, that's over participating because I can't let the trainer feel fucking awkward.
Sure.
Like, we are so good at the people pleasing, honey. But it's just so much energy that we could be pouring into the things that we hold the most dear, like our loved ones, our missions, things like that.
Yeah, I went through a phase shortly after healing my eating disorder where I really asked myself, okay, because it's like when you heal one distorted behavior, oftentimes it can kind of just go to something else, right?
Oh yeah, jumps.
Yeah. So I remember like as I was doing all of this like mental work, emotional work, spiritual work, somatic work, all the work with disordered eating and body image issues, I then realized that I was like, oh my gosh, I feel amazing. I can use food for health and hunger. I'm not over exercising. My body is not a constant source of pain. But guess what happened? It went work addiction. And then I was addicted to work. I worked like a workhorse. It's like I would wake, it's like, and everything had to be so perfect and regimented. And I had to start work at 8:30 and I had to take a break at 10:30. And then I had to eat lunch. And it just like, whoop. So then I was like, dang. Okay, there's still something there, right? And then I'm like, okay, how can I begin to heal this workaholic, which is just like lack of safety, lack of significance, so like really working on those pieces until that began to like, and then it was more sneaky. Like once like it was because it was really obvious with disordered eating. It was really obvious with work addiction, but then it became a little bit more sneaky, right? Then the perfectionism and the people pleasing. It wasn't these like big obvious things that overtook my life, but they were these, it worked its way in mysterious ways. And it's almost like the more work and more self-awareness we do, the more attuned we need to be to the nuances of these things because they're there. Yeah.
Oh my God, this is so important because the nuance is everything here. So the woman who's really like crippled in perfectionism has what society deems is successful on the outside. And so they're rooting for her. They're cheering her on. She's getting promotions and accolades and bonuses.
Yeah.
And she has the house and the car and all that. But what people don't understand is like, it's an internal suffering. It's a caging of the mind. It's the pressure that woman is going through. She is just living and existing in a pressure cooker ready to explode at any minute. And it doesn't show externally. It's more nuanced. It's more subtle. It's more covert. And the way that it's presenting externally is celebrated in our culture. So many women are like, I don't even want to say I have perfectionism because I feel like my perfectionism is a good thing. It's why I'm great. I'm like, but what's the cost internally? That pressure that I need to do more and it wasn't good enough and staying up late because, you want to re-edit the thing 400 times and then analyzing the conversation that you had for 4 days, berating yourself. Like, what's the cost internally? Because now you've just went from being obsessed with eating to obsessed with work to obsessed internally with this pressure. And sometimes we don't realize it until it all comes bubbling over that this is its own trauma response.
Absolutely.
But yeah, and it will still like it does still sneak up for me, even like with work, just randomly. Like I find it like trying to be the favorite of my daughter's teacher. Like I want everyone to like me so they'll take good care of my daughter. I'm like that's interesting.
Yeah.
The good girl syndrome, it runs deep.
It runs deep. It runs deep. I have this memory of this, like, it happened so much during my childhood, but we would go to a restaurant and my brother would order whatever the heck he wanted, lobster, steak, truffle fries, like the whole thing. I would always order chicken strips and fries off the kids' menu for $7.99.
Wow. Do you know how many people are relating to this right now? Do you know how many people are relating to that right now? We have all done that. We still do. We still get triggered when an a-hole on the team thinks they can order the steak and lobster when we're out here trying to be polite.
Yes.
And not take more than our share.
Yes.
And be considerate of all.
Yeah.
Like, what's that like to just not even worry about having the biggest thing on the menu? We don't know what that's like.
Yeah.
But it takes energy to feed these things, though.
Seriously. It's so exhausting. I remember this one year, I was probably like 15, 14. It was at like the peak of my dance career. And I was in like 17 different numbers. And does your daughter dance?
She did for a year competitively.
Okay. Yeah. She's just not into it, or?
No, she wanted to literally quit day one of the year-long contract. And it was fucking brutal for mom. Lots of lessons to be learned there, honey.
There you go.
Don't do anything competitively when they're 6. I didn't know what I was getting into, but I mean, it's a lot, right? The costumes, the shows, the competition.
So it was like, I remember being in like, I think something like 17 numbers or something, and every single costume's like $100. And I remember getting the bill. It was like a ridiculous amount of money and not giving it to my parents. Like, I was like, I can't have you pay for it. Like, and it was like so visceral in my body. And I just remember my mom being like, babe, I chose to put you in all the, I said yes to it. It's okay. You're allowed to have that. And I'm like, okay. And it was just so interesting how it's like these good girl complexes and this scarcity complex, all of this stuff can manifest at such a young age. And if we don't do the work, on ourselves now as like self-aware adults, that can just be passed on to our kids. And we just keep perpetuating the cycle of scarcity, not necessarily poverty, but scarcity.
Yes.
And scarcity is a very expensive energy to live in the body. It's just not our true nature. And in order to maintain scarcity, we have to be going against the grain of what is actually true. And that's exhausting.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I was interviewing this woman. She's like an Enneagram expert on my podcast. And she was saying that there's like 7 mantras that she says to her little boy every day. And they're like, my needs matter. All my needs can be met. I am allowed to take up space. I'm allowed to make noise. So like these words of like, my needs can be taken care of. You are allowed. Like, we didn't hear you are allowed. Even I bet there's people right now that are having like a visceral reaction to the you are allowed or not allowed. There's some energy around the word allowed. How do we reframe that and reposition that and rebrand that for our kids? Where it's like, wait a minute, we can still be mindful with our choices, but it's not that we're not allowed to want the steak or have the dance bill or take up space or be silly and noisy in class. Like, we actually are allowed. And that's how we start to break those cycles too, is like, first of all, living and breathing it on our own. Like, I am allowed, like, who's actually stopping me? But then also teaching them and cleaning up our language, because those messages, you're not allowed. They get in there.
You're not allowed. The whole thing.
You're too much. Oh my God.
What does a world look like? Like in your spectrum of the world, when women are liberated, they are unperfected. I love how you call it. Unperfected method is the method, right? When they're unperfected, when they're living aligned, like what is your hope and desire for women to go through that? And what does life look like on the other side?
Yeah, it's funny because as you were asking the question, I had an image of like a love outdoor dance festival. Like of just hundreds and thousands of women in their flowy, whatever clothes that make them feel the most sexy, just laughing and singing and dancing and hugging and skipping and hula hooping and like freedom of expression. And then the love that builds, and then the magic that builds, that we then go and channel into our relationships, into our missions, into literally coming up with complex solutions to our most complex problem. Like, I believe a liberated woman free from perfectionism is the answer to some of these. Why can't we figure this out? Why are we destroying our planet? Why are we competing with one another? Why are we? It's like, let's go dance, get the nips hard. Woo! And I'll tell you why in a minute, So I just see it as like a next level consciousness, a next level game that we're creating, where there is everything is coming from a place of love and authenticity. And so it feels good. And the ripple of good that does, like the healing properties that will bring. And I just think one by one, when you see a woman like take her mask off and step into her power, that affects everything in our community. Right? They're going to have better standards. They're going to have better boundaries. We're going to teach our daughters and our sons better standards and boundaries. We're going to be kind to our neighbor. We're going to be compassionate with others. We're going to be open and inclusive. And in that inclusivity and our gifts of connecting and collaborating, we're going to create in realms we've never created in. So that's why it's important. Yeah, perfectionism, let's be done with that. But it's so much deeper. It's like, what's possible in a life unperfected? Freedom of expression, and from their creation.
Woo, baby.
So good.
Oh, I got goosies all over my body. Brooke Jean, where can our audience find you? Where can they get amongst your goodness? Where are all the places on the interwebs where people can
in the interwebs? Come say hi to me on Instagram at Brooke Jean Unperfected. And then my website is liveunperfected.com. So you can access the podcast and all the things that we're up to liberate women from our trauma responses.
Yeah, you guys go get amongst Brooke's work. I said, it's such a privilege for me to be in your world and do life with you and hang out with you and just like, do this with you.
Yeah, we just boomerang it. It's been so fun. It's such a blessing in my life. Like, our Wednesday calls are a staple that I look forward to, that I'm like, speaking of like resourcing, I'm like, that's the plugin that I need midweek. That's going to remind me like who I am and why I'm here, and trying on all the things and leading from this gorgeous like dance of the masculine and the feminine has made my work so much more fun and therefore so much more impactful. So just thank you, Sam, for your energy and your leadership and your mission, because it's just like so juicy and so fun.
So it just gets
it's
to be
so good.
Fun.
And we just literally build off each other. Like, and by the time we're done, you guys, we're just like vibing.
It's wild. I'm like, I'm surprised we didn't break the internet, because the energy in the Life Mastermind, like the calls, it's so potent, man.
Yes. And all the other gorgeous, amazing women that are in there too. I'm just like so obsessed.
Me too. I'm literally obsessed with every single person. I'm like, I want to squish you guys, all of you. So good. So at the time of releasing this podcast, if you haven't seen on socials, on our mailing list, on all the things, we have opened the doors for the Life Mastermind for 2025. And it is a ridiculous offer. So for those of you who've had your eye on the Life Mastermind, www.pausebreathwork.com/mastermind, or just come over to the DM and send me a message and let me know you want in.
Oh, you guys get in there with us. Join our club. It's such a special club. If you have a mission on your heart and you want to do it in a way that feels so glorious, join us.
Yay, I love it.
Thank you, Sam.
Oh my God, it's been a slice, Brooke. I love you so much. Have an amazing day.
Bye.
Bye.
Can't be contained.